Welcome everyone to the BMES Professional Development webinar, How to Maximize Industry Engagement with Local Chapters. My name is Justin Huckabee and I'll be your moderator today. So I'm a graduate student at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, but I also serve some functions as a member of BMES Industry and Clinical Affairs Committee. So happy to moderate today and hopefully answer some of our questions you may have for industry and BMES local chapters. So just a few housekeeping announcements first. This webinar will be recorded for your convenience. The various slides are going to be archived along with the recording, and within the next few days, these should be published by BMES on their website. At any time during the webinar, we ask you to submit questions by using the online chat function, which is found in the lower left-hand portion of your screen. So you can submit these as we go, and then the speakers will try to answer as many as we can at the end of the presentation. And then lastly, do not exit the webinar immediately because there will be a brief evaluation, and we would greatly appreciate your feedback. So before I introduce our speakers today, we're going to ask a few polling questions just to get a general idea of the audience and some engagement. So first, and I'll give you about a minute to answer each of these questions, which of the following best describes you? So if you could select based on the choices and submit your answers, then we'll view the results. All right, so mostly we have undergraduate students on the call today. So the next question. So do you know if you have a BMES student or industry chapter in your area? And you may have both, so you could answer yes to one, or you could answer yes to both. I'll give a few more seconds to answer this one. So pretty much everyone has a student chapter in the area, not as much industry chapter representation for this audience. All right, and I think we have just one more. And are you currently a member or officer of either a BMES student or industry chapter? If not, we encourage you to join one or both. So let's see. Yep, have quite a few people that are at least in a student chapter. All right, and that'll do it for the early polling questions we asked at the beginning. And now I am happy to introduce our first speaker. He is from industry. It's Andrew Cobb. He's a quality assurance engineer with Abbott Laboratories, and he's going to give some insight into BMES industry chapters and some best practices from the industry perspective. So, Andrew, can you take it away?
Absolutely. Thank you, Justin, for the introduction there. As Justin mentioned, I am a quality assurance engineer in Abbott Laboratories in the cardiac rhythm management division specifically. So before we get a little bit into what my company is in general, as well as what my specific role is, I wanted to start it off with a larger perspective in terms of why maximize engagement with industry chapters in the first place. And so what this gets into is industry chapters offer a variety of benefits for students as well as professionals as well. So just to go ahead and list a couple of those. So there are opportunities within industry chapters, and after you get connected with them, to expand your network. And so in this presentation, We're going to be discussing a lot about the importance of networking and how that can help you out in development as well as to grow your career aspects in the future, as well as some professional development opportunities offered through the industry chapters as well. And so some of those areas, for example, would be in areas such as leadership and development opportunities, also for those who are interested in R&D, quality control, operations, regulatory, and there are a variety of other specific areas for development specifically. So for more information about industry chapters in general, what I'd like to point everyone to is the website you see on the screen there, and that's bmes.org/industry chapters. So on there you'll see a variety of the different areas where they have benefits for joining industry chapters, as well as how you can go ahead and get plugged into them. And in the case where there is not an industry chapter in your area, there also, as you can see in the little pamphlet guide to the right there, there's also some information there for how to start a BMES chapter that could be of very good use for you. So let's go ahead and get into where are the current industry chapters. So what you're seeing on the screen there are currently where the industry chapters are throughout the United States. So you can see we have pretty good coverage from the West Coast side, on the San Francisco Bay Area, all the way to the East Coast with Research Triangle Park, mentioned in North Carolina as well. So go ahead and start thinking about which chapter is closest to you. And again, the opportunity is there as well for if there's not an industry chapter that's close to you to go ahead and have an opportunity to start one based on that website that we previously discussed. So I want to talk a little bit about Abbott as well as my role there. So Abbott Laboratories is a global healthcare company that covers products across cardiovascular, diabetes care, diagnostics, neuromodulation, nutrition, and medicine. And for those of you who may be interested in one of those specific product areas that I just called out, I'd recommend you to go ahead and visit our website. So we have a great website that actually for each of these subject areas I listed, they have links where you can go ahead and click. You can see a general description of our product portfolio there, as well as see some patient videos and learn a little bit more about Abbott as we seek to improve the lives of patients worldwide. So my role specifically in Abbott is I'm the quality assurance engineer, and I'm a career-passionate, patient-focused engineer who works in the new product development space for design transfer activities within the cardiac rhythm management division. So what this looks like is evaluating design and process capabilities to ensure that the product that we produce consistently meets requirements. So a little bit about the high-level agenda that I'm going to be discussing with everyone here today about is the importance of networking, go ahead and giving some tips. I see that we have a majority student population here, so giving some tips for networking and preparing for that connection. Also diving into staying involved and the importance of staying involved and getting plugged into different organizations at your university in order to stand out among the crowd. So how to better engage with industry. So here I want to highlight the importance of networking. So I've heard it mentioned to me a couple times before, specific phrases such as your network defines your net worth, as well as another catchy phrase that your resume will get you seen, your network will land you the job. And I've seen that with my colleagues as well, as they went ahead and expanded out their network to join different device companies as well as pharmaceutical companies around the globe. So some advice here that I'd like to give is to not approach a company asking what they do. And what I mean by that is do your homework ahead of time before you go ahead and network with the industry member. And so what this could look like, for example, is going ahead and reading on the company's website, as well as looking into LinkedIn, folks who currently work in that company, just to get a general idea of the big picture of the product portfolio and what that looks like before having that conversation with the member itself. So that'll typically allow them to show you that you're at least interested and that you have dived into a little bit more about what that company represents. So in terms of preparing for that networking conversation, so there are a few different ways that you can go ahead and get tapped into a larger network, one of which is tapping into the alumni network offered by your university. So And talking with several universities, I know that there are several individuals throughout universities nationwide that are specific in each department for connecting students with potential employers. So if your university does have that individual, I'd recommend touching base with them first. If not, that's completely okay. Chances are if they do have that individual, that individual has already tapped into that alumni network, so they may be able to help provide some additional guidance to help you along your search. And some other ways you could do this too is looking into alumni network is if you go into LinkedIn, type the university name, for example, and go ahead and type the company that you're interested in looking into. And chances are you'll get some results that you can go ahead and look into further for some people who've studied at your place of study and who are now out there in the professional work environment. Also, I'd recommend attending conferences, so making sure that you have the appropriate attire, going ahead and arriving with goals as well. So make sure that you have, if you're planning on meeting certain individuals at that conference, make sure that you had mapped all that out ahead of time. You know a little bit about the individual via their LinkedIn, for example, prior to go ahead and making that connection. And that'll just help facilitate that goal as you go ahead and approach it in the conference. And then also, it's very important to follow up. So whether that be via email, through LinkedIn, or through some other service. So I'd definitely recommend following up. Some tips here would be to be brief in emails, as well as LinkedIn messages. So with these messages that are being sent, oftentimes people in the professional work environment are juggling between answering these as well as their actual job duties. So just as important to be brief and also be patient as well, as it takes some time for them to get back to you. And it's also very important to remain in contact following that initial connection you made. So some examples I'm going to give here are some examples my colleagues and I have experienced working with different institutions around the U.S. is participating in things such as resume reviews. So in this case, my colleagues and I have touched base with universities, and they've asked us to do essentially speed rounds of resumes reviews. And so these are practice rounds for the students. They're typically timed generally around 5 minutes or so. And in this, what happens is the students are pitching themselves to the industry member. And the industry member then gives some advice for specific areas that they could improve their resume upon. So whether that may be looking into a certain class that university offers, or getting an internship in a specific space that student is interested in, and that way they'll stand out among the crowd when they actually go ahead and have the interview itself. And also career development talks for university students. So these offer students the ability to learn more about the company, as well as to see different products that company makes that may pique the interest of students as they're looking for future areas of employment specifically. So since we do have a majority student population here, I wanted to go ahead and prepare a slide for general advice for students in the first place. So what I would recommend now, just being on the other side in terms of being a few years out of schooling into the industry, I would recommend marketing yourself for the position you're applying for. And so go ahead and put yourself in the shoes of the position that you're wanting, and thinking what type of individual would you be looking for, what specific traits, what specific backgrounds need to be apparent before you make that hire, because those are the types of questions that the hiring manager is going to be thinking of prior to making their selection. Also, if you do not have business cards, I would recommend ordering some. I know several universities have printing groups, which you have the ability to go up to them and essentially mention you want to order some business cards and get those done. However, if your university does not have one of those agreements, I'd recommend go ahead and just visiting your general office supply store and getting something simple as far as business cards. They don't have to be anything fancy, but it is important to have them as you enter in these social networking events, that you're able to connect with others and share contact information. Also, when you do eventually get to the point of the interview, what I recommend is writing a thank you letter. So these actually go a very far way in terms of showing the employers that you're interested in the position, that you went ahead and took out the time to go ahead and follow up and thank the individuals who are balancing their work schedules with their interview times. Thank them for that time that they set apart. And what I'd recommend as well is familiarizing yourself with the targeted industry's lingo. What I'm getting by that is if there's a specific area that you're wanting to work in, so let's say process engineering, for example, I'd recommend familiarizing yourself with areas such as process verification versus process validation, or if you're interested in design verification versus design validation. So I'd recommend at least getting into the lingo of things so that you can go ahead and be prepared when those questions come up in interviews. Even if you haven't had specific experience in that area, but let's say you're a young professional just entering industry for the first time, it's at least important if you can show that you understand what they stand for and you understand, at least from a theoretical sense, that how to approach them, even if you don't have the actual experience under your belt yet. Also, I'd recommend definitely staying involved while you're at your university. And this is a key point that I want to continue on with here. So make sure that you get involved in leadership roles. So the folks that apply with resumes throughout a variety of industry companies that have leadership roles in their resumes, those folks typically do stand out among the others. So the folks that are participating in community outreach activities or other extracurricular activities, so these things definitely do stand out rather than just solely focusing on academics and not bolstering your resume with things such as adding on these additional leadership opportunities or internships and co-ops, for example. So one example of this is a colleague explained to me once is there was an individual in an interview, and they had a gap of a few years after they had graduated schooling. And what's interesting about this is, it stood out on the resume. This is interesting. This person graduated a few years back, and they don't have a position yet. But what that individual was able to explain, from what I'm told, is that they participated in an engineering outreach program, which over those years, they traveled to different countries and implemented engineering designs and techniques in resource-poor areas around the world. And so that actually struck the attention of the people who were interviewing. And rather than looking at it as a distraction, they thought it was something very interesting and neat to talk about for the person who was interviewing. So those are some things to keep in mind in terms of involvement there. And in order to dive deeper about one university, for example, and how they've connected with the industry and just the topic in general of staying involved, I want to go ahead and hand it off to Justin to introduce our next speaker, Marie.
Thanks, Andrew. Awesome presentation. A lot of helpful tips and tricks I think that all of us can apply, especially as we maybe gear towards industry positions and roles in the future. So now I'd like to introduce our second speaker, who comes from a more student chapter perspective, and that is Marie Schwartz. She's the president of the Purdue University BMES student chapter, and she's going to give us some other helpful insight, tips, and tricks. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Marie.
Hello, my name is Marie Schwartz, and I'm a senior at Purdue University in biomedical engineering. And today I just kind of want to talk to you guys about how to maximize industry engagement as a student chapter. I also added my contact information, so if any student organizations are struggling with their industry outreach or just as a student chapter by itself, please feel free to contact me and I'll see how I can help. So to start off, I want to give a brief overview of our industry goals. So our goals related to industry are to expose our students to different career paths available for biomedical engineers. We want to provide networking and job opportunities and educate students on how to be professional. And lastly, we want to be able to collaborate with our industry partners to create more opportunities for our Purdue biomedical engineering students. So originally, our chapter participated in maybe 2 or 3 industry events, but starting last year, we added events like tours of our research labs at the Weldon School of Biomedical Engineering. We scheduled tours of medical device companies. We hosted weekly seminars of current research from graduate and undergraduate students. And we also held information sessions for recruitment from companies such as Eli Lilly, Epic, and Zoll Medical. So one of the annual events that our chapter hosts each year is a networking dinner during Purdue's Industrial Roundtable. This event provides students with an opportunity to network with potential employers in a more casual setting than is found at Purdue's Industrial Roundtable. And if you don't know much about this Industrial Roundtable, a bit more information about it is that it consists of over 100 engineering companies who are looking for engineers specifically from Purdue. And to provide the BME students with more industry opportunities, we hold a networking dinner and ask specifically biomedical companies to join us for a casual dinner with the students. We start the whole process in the summer before the fall semester, and we have our Director of Professional Development send out invitations to companies inviting them to the event. In previous years, we've asked each student who attends to pay $15 to attend the event, but in the future, we hope to obtain company sponsorship and have the event be free to all the biomedical students. During the event, like I mentioned previously, we provide dinner, and this is in the form of finger foods because we want to allow the students to be able to eat and also converse with potential employers. And then following the event, we allow the students to hand out their resumes to the company reps and mingle just a little bit more casual atmosphere. And hopefully at the end of the whole process, they will have a foot in the door when it comes to these job opportunities. Another event that we host each year is the information session for Eli Lilly. And to draw students in to the event, Eli Lilly has started bringing in like pizza and drinks, and we find that this really draws in students and pushes them to really look for more industry opportunities by having like a food like initiative. And the event itself, the reps provide a background of Eli Lilly, the day-to-day roles a biomedical engineer would take part in, the job opportunities for students ranging from sophomore year to even post-graduation. And we found that having this laid-back environment has shown an increase in student comfort, and it really opens up the floor to questions that students may not have been as comfortable to ask. And the company representatives that come to the event are very fun and very outgoing and very engaging. And they do a really good job of informing the students of available positions. And they also take resumes from the students who attend. One of the opportunities we like to focus on for this specific event is a sophomore co-op position. We want the students to really get involved in industry as soon as possible. And the really nice thing about this opportunity that it's only available at Purdue for one biomedical engineering student, and that student has to be a sophomore. So we really push the students to remain competitive in the industry outreach, and we really push them to apply for this position just so that they can get started early in the game. So the next event that we hold is really similar to the previous event with Eli Lilly, as it allows students to really get a feel for the company and understand the job opportunities that are available for biomedical engineering students specifically. We have found that many students will come to these information sessions as they find it difficult to find job opportunities online, and we found that they really appreciate being given potential opportunities in person. An event that we held this semester was with a company, Epic. It was also an information session. And we have already heard back that many students have accepted job offers from this company after coming to the information session and speaking to the company reps. so we found that they're very successful and they're very engaging. Another event that we have is focused on helping the students seek professional opportunities as an undergraduate. And we're trying to help students find co-op, internship, and research opportunities. And at the event, we talked to the students about being proactive instead of reactive when looking for a job. We really want them to be positive and reach out to as many companies as they can. We also recommend that students who don't have the highest GPA spend less time avoiding the companies that they believe they will not get a job with and just apply to them. Sometimes your personality goes a long way and your GPA doesn't have as much of an effect as you would think. We tell the students that if they put in enough effort and really reach out to companies, their chances of getting a job definitely increase. We believe the motto that you miss 100% of the shots you don't take really applies to the situation. To help the students with professional etiquette and resumes, we advertise events held by Purdue Center for Career Opportunities. And this is a really nice opportunity for the students because the Career Center, they will edit resumes, they'll hold mock interviews, and they'll teach students how to personally conduct themselves to increase their chances of getting a job. We also encourage students to stay in contact with companies, even if they don't receive a job offer, and to send out thank you letters after the interviews just to maintain a good rep with the company in case in later years you apply again. One of the things that we really like to focus on in this aspect is we really encourage students to market themselves, take the experiences that they have received in life and really showcase them to show the company that you can learn from your mistakes, that you are a really hard worker, and that when you put your mind to something, you push forward and you complete it. We like the students to talk about themselves with confidence. If you meekly talk about, oh, like maybe I did this, that's not going to show that you're comfortable with what you've done and the experiences that you've had. So we really like the students to talk with confidence and really believe in themselves. Moving on, this event is really interesting and really, I think it's very beneficial for the students. We hold this event called BME Bites, and it showcases graduate student research in BME at Purdue, and it gives the undergraduate students an opportunity to learn about the innovative work being done at Purdue. One of our goals from these events are that students will talk to the graduate students afterwards and hopefully find a position on the research team. We really believe that these events are very valuable to the students because we believe that research definitely increases your different skills that you'll acquire, will help with finding a job. And we also believe that this is wonderful presenting experience to the graduate students to help with post-graduation and finding a job in that aspect as well. It's a very wonderful experience. We have pizza that we provide for the students, and we usually hold the event around noontime, and that we've seen that really draws in a lot of students as they're hungry, and so they're more inclined to come in, listen for the talk, and maybe some information might catch their attention, and they apply for a research position. Following after that, an event that we have is, or multiple events I should say, are lab tours at the Weldon School of Biomedical Engineering. And we like to host these research lab tours. As I mentioned previously, we really like for students to participate in research positions because we believe that they will gain more experience before looking for a full-time industry position. And we found that all you have to do is ask. When we ask professors or we ask grad students if, hey, could we bring in a couple people into the lab and show them around, everyone is very open and willing to do that, and everyone has a wonderful experience. Some of the students don't really understand what is all entailed with research, and so this is a wonderful opportunity for them. Following that, our chapter also conducts company tours, and two of the company tours that we did last year were Zimmer Biomet and Diffuse Synthesis. And we do this in an effort to open students' eyes to what a company looks like and the types of people that work there. We like to ask about the day-to-day activities for a biomedical engineer and the types of projects that they would be working on. And I believe these experiences are truly invaluable and a wonderful experience for the students, just to prepare them for after they get a job or when they go on company tours after or during an interview, just how to conduct themselves and like certain questions that they can ask, things like that. And lastly, our continued goals going into this year and the years ahead of us are to continue the industry outreach that we've initiated and keep adding more and more opportunities for the students. In the next couple of months, we aim to hold panels of students who experience co-ops, internships, grad school, research, PhD, master's, and industry. Other exciting events include a medical school application seminar, which will be hosted by our Director of Mentorship on the do's and don'ts during the medical school application process. And we believe this all ties into the industry outreach because once students graduate, they are going to be looking for full-time positions, and having the best background and the best schooling will definitely add on to that. We know that our students work hard to achieve their bachelor's degree in biomedical engineering, and we aim to make the industry connection a little bit easier and more comfortable process. Our goal is to help students succeed during and after they graduate from Purdue University, and I believe that through industry outreach, we're truly accomplishing that goal. And finally, I'd just like to finish my time by acknowledging our advisors, counselors, and the Weldon School of Biomedical Engineering and our industry contacts, because without them, our outreach would not be of the quality and the reach that it is now. Thank you for listening, and I'll give this back to Justin.
Thanks, Marie. Awesome job. A lot of great discussion. I think you provide a lot of good points that can be utilized by anyone that has a BMES chapter at their school. So now we're at the time where we'd like to take questions from the audience, and I think we have a few already. But anyways, so continue to submit these questions because we're more than happy to ask these to our two speakers, Andrew and Marie, and then we will provide both of their feedback as they answer. So I think the first one is a little more geared towards Marie. So the question is, how many students are in your BMES chapter at Purdue? And additionally to that, I guess this is kind of like a percentage. How many of your student members typically attend these different BME Bites and networking events that you provide?
So oh yeah, sure. So the students, the amount of students that we have in our industry, or not our industry chapter, our student chapter, is I think it's around like 250. We like draw in all the students and we invite them to join our organization. But we found that only a small percentage of those students will actually come to the events. We're still working on increasing our outreach. I would say about 30 students will come to each event, and that increases with like the different types of events that we have.
So some events are a little more popular or resonate a little better with your members.
Oh, definitely. It also depends if we have food. Let me restart that. We have had events where we did not have food like pizza or snacks, and we've noticed that the students that come, the amount is so much smaller. We'll have like 10 to 15. But
Definitely. We've also noticed that with advertising, if we advertise like a couple weeks in advance, we definitely get more students that are willing to show up just because they can kind of pencil it into their schedule. But when we've done it like a couple days to a week in advance, not as many students will show up because they've already made prior commitments.
Awesome.
And that's
I think that's
advice that I have.
So I think we're getting quite a few questions regarding actually this topic of how chapters are kind of struggling with attendance or commitment to their BMES, their school's BMES chapter. Someone asks also, besides offering food, what other strategies or mechanisms can you or have you used to get students to show up to events?
We've
or
held
if there is
events
other strategies.
I believe there's many strategies. One of the other strategies that we like to incorporate is just making the event more interactive. Many students don't want to sit in a lecture hall and listen to a company rep just talk about their company. They're looking for something that's more fun and engaging. So if you could do like little games during it or little prizes that you could do, like one of the things we did is we made a sticker for our major, and previously we sold them for like $1, but at the events we would hand them out for free. Like you answer some questions, you get a free sticker. And we've seen that people will come to the events for also free merchandise.
Yeah, everyone loves an incentive, so I think that's a great method to use to entice others to come to your events. So one more question kind of on that topic. So you guys at Purdue host quite a few events throughout the year, it seems like, and they look awesome. But someone asks, can you actually host too many events, or what's kind of the optimal number of events to host per semester?
I know that our events are pretty spread out, and I don't believe that we have too many events. I believe if you have one like every week, students might get burned out, and that's why like with our BME Bites event, we do it every other week. That way students can like keep up their normal routines, and then every other week go for like some free pizza and a quick talk about like research that's going on at Purdue. And just along with other events, we don't have like room for a lot of students to come with like on industry tours. So we have a larger quantity of those so that we reach more students. I don't feel like tours, that one you can have too many events. So I would definitely encourage you to go to as many companies as you can. Students definitely enjoy that experience and getting that job opportunity. But if your org is holding an event every week, I can see how the students would get burnt out unless you always have free stuff. But if you have as much trouble as we do with funding, then that's not really an option.
Great
answer, I think I answered
Marie.
that question. Thank you.
Yeah. So here's a slightly different question that I think both Andrew and Marie can kind of answer together, and that is, someone asked, how should an email be structured if you want to contact someone, maybe to come speak to contact like an industry professional to come speak at a BMES student chapter? What might be some good, strong points to entice that industry professional to come to your university and give a talk to a lot of students?
Hello, Justin. This is
And
Andrew.
maybe yeah.
Yeah, go for it. What were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, we can hear from you first. That'd be perfect.
Sounds great. So some thoughts that I have on that one in general is I don't really necessarily think that there's a magical recipe in terms of how to structure an email to an industry representative asking them to come speak. That being said, some things that I believe would work well is to go ahead and do your background on that individual in terms of research, what areas and what type of background they have. And then what I would do is I would try to connect with them, mention something that's interesting. And I thought that Marie has a great slide in here where she sort of diagrams out what an example of what that type of email would look like. And you can sort of just tailor that a little bit to an outreach conversation asking them to come inside. So I think if you, number one, mention, do your background and find something that interests you or as well as the other students as well. And then two, connect with them, and you could use a format that Marie listed would be a great place to start for that one.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I do like that slide as well. That was really insightful and useful. Marie, do you have any other kind of comments on strategies that have worked well for your chapter?
Some pointers that I would personally say is definitely construct your emails professionally. Don't address them like they're your best friend and you're sending them a meme. Definitely be very respectful of the company and just be very genuine. I found that if you just lay it all out there, tell them something that you want and something that they could help you out with, that has really gotten a lot of good feedback in terms of emails.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for the extra tips and hints, Marie, and your insight as well, Andrew. I think that's very valuable. We have another question that's also kind of switching gears a little bit, and I think a lot of different chapters can relate to this. That's essentially, what if your university or your BMES chapter is kind of secluded a bit and it's hours and hours distance away from maybe any biomedical industries or an industry chapter? What are ways to maybe further get student involvement and kind of offer a value proposition to your students with your BMES chapter?
I think I can answer this one. One of the things that I think this is Bryant. One of the things that you might want to look into is having a career fair. So you can make this an annual event, and once a year you invite all of the BME companies that you can get in contact with, invite them to come to your school, have either a mini or a huge career fair depending on how many companies you get, and that will just allow the students to speak personally to all these company representatives. And I believe if you just phrase it a career fair, more companies are more willing to come because they are looking for more employees and BME students for biomedical engineering roles. Another thing that you could do is apply for a travel grant. You can just go online and try to, your school might provide some, and find a travel grant to where you can take a couple students, maybe that's 3 or 4 hours away, and really interact with the company and make it like a whole day experience. And therefore, like, the students will be getting that industry outreach that you're looking for, and you won't have to dish out the big bucks for it.
I would agree with that, Marie.
I think that's great advice.
So just to piggyback off of what Marie just mentioned in terms of the travel grant, so Brian, I appreciate your question here because I can definitely see how, there are a variety of industry jobs for biomedical engineering across the United States, but there definitely are clusters as well. One of the more obvious ones, for example, would be that Minneapolis-St. Paul area, just to go ahead and pick one. But what I would recommend is just like Marie mentioned. So essentially, if you have the opportunity to get a travel grant and go to them, then I think that would be an excellent opportunity. So one example of a university that I'm aware of that does this is what they do as part of one of their master's programs is they travel by bus a few hours away, and actually it's longer than the 3 to 4 hours time listed there in the question. So they actually probably travel about 6 or so hours with a bus of students. And what they do is they visit a cluster of biomedical device companies. And so they make it a whole day experience, and they go ahead and make the connections there. And what's great about that opportunity is not only do they get to see firsthand what it would be like in the biomedical industry by actually being there physically, but also what they have the opportunity to do is go ahead and network because at those events they have typically various members from HR, for example, as well as members from the engineering staff, and they have the opportunity to go ahead and network and exchange contact information within there. So it serves as a great opportunity to go ahead and not only hear from an industry member or members, you actually get to see the location, you actually get to network as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, it's kind of like essentially sounds like creating almost like a site visit. I think that's and you're going to the company, so I'm sure they're more than happy to welcome you versus having to travel that 5-6 hour distance themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So we have just a few more questions before we probably wrap up, and I think these relate a little more back to the student chapters. So someone asked kind of regarding a project, do you guys at Purdue do a kind of like, I guess, an outreach type project, and or what have been kind of the outcomes of those, Marie?
This is a great question. Last year, actually, we likes to do a lot of community outreach. And so one of the things we focused on last semester or last year was we were contacted by an animal shelter near our school, and they had a dog who couldn't really walk very well because its kneecaps were in the wrong position. And so there wasn't any money to have surgery for the dog, and so they were looking for more of a device that would help the dog correct its posture and just help it walk in a correct manner. And so what we did as an organization is we reached out to other organizations at Purdue, and we found another student organization called Mind who actually worked with medical devices. And so together we collaborated and we designed a device for this dog, and it was kind of like a wheelchair for the dog as it held up the back end of the dog and helped out its posture and let it use its two healthy front legs to walk around. And it was a great experience, and we got great exposure with it. So definitely try reaching out into your community, volunteer. Your BME project could be something as simple as raising money or having people donate cans for the Christmas time of the year, for a food drive. You don't have to tailor your project to something BME, although I definitely encourage that. Instead, if you're an up-and-comer, you could just do simple community outreach events. You could partner with churches who reach out to the community already and just have events like that, definitely.
Awesome, and I think that really complements what Andrew said during his part of the presentation, where he said he and other industry professionals really like to see that extracurricular experience and activities that students have, and that it kind of provides a form of leadership. So I don't know if Andrew has any further comments on that, but he already touched on it.
Thanks, Justin. Yes, I definitely think that does cause someone's resume, for example, to stick out of the stack. And one thing, too, I'll just go ahead and mention to the student population here that I was told prior to joining industry, and I really didn't gain an appreciation for it until after the fact, was that the resumes are reviewed in a matter of seconds. So make sure that it's very evident to the reader. And feel free to go ahead and give your resume to someone who hasn't seen it before as well to get their perspective on it as well. But feel free to make sure that your resume is very evident that you are going above and beyond. And what that'll do is for the reader in the medical device companies or pharmaceutical companies, for example, is that allows us to see, hey, this person is standing out among the pack. We're going to separate them from the rest of this pile here. And so definitely those leadership, I can't express that enough, how important those leadership opportunities are in those organizations, as well as just stay involved throughout the community, as well as Marie was touching on.
And Justin,
Awesome.
If you don't mind if I hop in really quick.
Go for it.
Going off of what Andrew said, every university should have a sort of form of a career center. And if you just take some time, go in there and show them your resume, they're going to provide you with invaluable help. And that'll just increase your chances of getting a job and definitely helping with your industry connections.
Awesome. So kind of on that same vein in regards to resumes and industry resumes, we have someone who asks, what's the best place to essentially put the keywords to garner this interest on your resume? Should you find and take these keywords out of, say, the company's mission statement, the job description, or is there any kind of general advice you may have, Andrew?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in general, for the keywords, what I would recommend here is taking a look at the actual job posting. So let's say, for example, you're interested in a process engineering position. So what I would recommend in there is I would recommend going through those different job postings, let's say for a variety of companies, if you're interested in a variety, and then go ahead and look for common words that express themselves throughout those job postings. And then what you can do is you can go ahead and say, all right, for example, for process engineering, I'm seeing over and over again process verification and process validation activities. What are those? And then what that would get you into is diving a little bit more into what, for example, process validation entails. And so you can dive into that. You can do your research there, reach out to people from industry, ask them for any advice on how you can learn more about those areas. And then what you can do is once you feel like you have a decent enough ability to be able to explain and give an example of what they are, I've seen it being put on under the skills section of the resume before. So it'll list 3 skills, for example, in each area that they're familiar with. And one thing I will say, though, is just be prepared that if you put it on your resume, be prepared to answer to it in an interview. So don't necessarily put everything on there that, let's say, for example, you don't know anything about. I would put things on there that you feel comfortable with after doing the research and talking to and giving examples about.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And just as a plug for BMES in general, I know that at the annual meeting every year, there is a BMES resume review workshop that I believe any student or any person is able to attend as long as they bring a resume. And often there are industry professionals there who are kind of looking over, critiquing, and helping you maybe tailor your resume towards a certain position or industry. So I think that's really valuable, as well as, like both Andrew and Marie said, taking advantage of these workshops maybe offered at your university or through other professional organizations. So we have time for maybe one more question, and so I'll ask this. Goes a little back towards just BMES student chapters, and that is, whenever you're scheduling these events, Marie, to kind of get more involvement of the students, do you like to keep a set time each week or each semester whenever you have these meetings so that you can stay consistent, or do you want to kind of switch up the time so that you can get students to come from maybe a different variety that may have like different class schedules?
That's a great question, and I do have an answer for it. What we like to do is we like to do both. Events
like the every other week, we like to hold out on the same day. It's very consistent so that people don't forget about it. Because if you have that consistent event on like different days and different times, but still every other week, you're going to have a lot of trouble with students remembering what day of the week is it, what time of the week is it. And so if you're having a weekly event or a bi-weekly event, definitely have a consistent time and a consistent day. But the other events, we like to kind of throw them all around the week just to see how many students will show up. So we'll have, say, a Tuesday night event, and that'll be like not industry related, but we'll have the students go bowling and just socialize and interact with each other. And then we might try Thursday night, and then we might try a Wednesday event during the day. And so you've got to really test out each day of the week unless you know like the students' schedules. We have a really nice system where the students are very forthcoming with the schedules that they have and the times that they're free. And so we put that into our schedule. And we kind of like to put events in during that time when we know that more students will show up.
Awesome. Thanks, Marie. So this is about all the time we have. It's almost 1. And we really appreciate all the questions. We had quite a few. And if we were unable to get to your question, we apologize, but we will pass them on. I will pass them on to both Marie and Andrew, and hopefully they can follow up with you to maybe answer. So this is going to conclude our webinar about increasing industry engagement from student chapter perspectives. And thank you for joining us. Again, please stay online to answer those questions. And as another reminder, this webinar is being recorded, the slides as well as the audio, so they will be archived and available on the BMES website if you want to look back at some of the awesome, helpful tips provided by Andrew and Marie today. And you should be notified by email when these materials have been posted. And finally, we hope you will join us at other BMES events. I know I mentioned the annual meeting, the resume review workshop, but there are also quite a few others listed here, events and activities offered by BMES that you can advance professionally. So we encourage you to attend those different conferences and things. And to learn more about these, just visit the BMES website at www.bmes.org. And again, thank you, and we hope you'll join us for our next webinar.